Hi, my name is Zulfadhli Bin Abdul Aziz and my metric number is 08DPR20F1010, and today we are going to discuss about the famous case of D.B.Cooper, a case that the FBI referred to as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in FBI history. It was the night before Thanksgiving, 24th November 1971, when through the doors of the busy Politeknik International Airport, a man went up to the check-in counter for Northwest Orient Airlines. The culprit checked in under the name then Cooper. He was to take a half-an-hour flight to Seattle, a short trip home, presumably to spend time with loved ones, but that was far from the case. He was about to create the most successful yet mysterious aerial heist in history. He boarded onto Flight 305. Some people say he sat in seat 18C, but others dispute that. Whatever the seat is, it seems that our Mr. Cooper was in the mood for merriment. He sat back, lit up a smoke, and imbibed a bourbon and soda. According to witnesses who were later interviewed, he wore a dark suit, a black tie, and decorated with a mother of pearl tie pin. He was later described by flight attendants to be 178 centimeters to 180 centimeters tall, weighing 77 to 82 kilograms. It is said that he had tan skin and was likely in his early 40s. Not long into the flight, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant. Her name was Florence Schaffner, and at first she just put it in her pocket without looking at it. Cooper then leaned over to her and said, "Miss, you better look at the note. I have a bomb." She looked at him and knew he wasn't fooling around. The note read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit beside me," and the man showed he wasn't kidding, offering her a glimpse of some sticks of dynamite and lots of wires attached to a battery. He then apparently told her, "I want $200,000 by 5 p.m. in cash, put in a knapsack. I want 2 back parachute and 2 front parachute. When we land, I want a fuel truck ready to refuel. No funny stuff, or I'll do the job." One odd detail was that Cooper asked for the $200,000 to be exclusively in $20 bills. According to Schaffner, she was reeling with fear. Was the plane about to explode? Were a lot of people about to burn in midair? She was confused too. This smartly dressed man had been polite. He'd even give her a $20 bill for the drink and told her she could keep the $80 change. He wasn't the typical terrorist she'd heard about. Another flight attendant later remarked, and I quote, "He wasn't nervous. He seemed rather nice. He was never cruel or nasty. He was thoughtful and calm at all times." End quote. She went to the cockpit and told the news to the crew, after which the pilot informed Seattle-Tacoma Airport Air Traffic Control. The authorities were alerted. The plane circled in the air for 2 hours, while the passenger not having a single clue what was going on. They were told the plane was experiencing a minor mechanical difficulty. What was really happening is that the authorities had decided to meet the hijackers' demands, and they were putting together a list of things, including the money. The man remained calm and even started talking about what he could see down below, meaning he knew the area very well. Meanwhile, Cooper was ordering another drink. The money was being put together in unmarked bills. Although it said, Cooper wasn't very happy with the military-grade parachutes. He wanted civilian parachute, and they had to be taken from a nearby skydiving school. But keep it in mind, only one of the 2 sets of parachute were working, and the other is sewn shut. The aircraft landed at 5:39 p.m. at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Cooper told the pilot to taxi to a brightly lit area of the airport and for all the window shades to be lowered in case of a sniper tried to take him out. Northwest Orient's Seattle Operation Manager, I. Lee, delivered the cash and parachute to the aircraft. Cooper then instructed the passengers they could leave the airplane, as could 2 of the flight attendants, including Schaffner. 1 remained. He then proceeded to the cockpit crew that they would all be going on a trip to Mexico City, except he wanted them to fly at the lowest speed possible. He also told them to fly at 3,000 meters altitude. The pilots told him they would need to refuel once more, and Nevada was chosen. Cooper told them to keep the landing gear down and for the cabin to remain unpressurized. He told the authorities that no one could come on board during the refueling while they were still in Seattle. It said that the last person to see Cooper was a 22-year-old flight attendant called Tina Maklo. She said he told her to go back to the cockpit, and the last thing she witnessed was him tying something around his waist. With the crew all in the cockpit, they heard an alarm indicating that the FS apparatus had been deployed. It was around 8 p.m., and just 2 hours later, the aircraft landed. The mysterious hijacker was not one of the occupants of the plane. Here's a little poem about what likely happened. Out on a little service doorway in the rear of the plane, Cooper jumped into the darkness, into the freezing rain. They said that with wind chill, it was 69 below. Not much chance he'd survive, but if he did, where did he go? Indeed, where did he go? The authorities looked all over for him, for the parachute, for anything. They went through every bit of forest where he might have landed. It was the largest search ever by law enforcement, and in the end, all they found were the remains of a girl that had been abducted and murdered. For years, the police searched for the money as all their bills had serial numbers, but that never showed up either. The press had a field day, and it was a mistake made by a reporter which gave him the name D.B.Cooper. It stopped. As for the American people, many loved the story of the handsome, well-spoken, James Bond-like character. People rooted for him, likely to the chagrin of law enforcement. What the cops didn't know is that this guy knew how to parachute. He knew planes. He knew the area. How hard could it be to put the pieces together? The only answer to that is yes. It's very hard. The FBI had lots of leads that came to nothing, changing their story a few times. For instance, the FBI later said that he was likely not someone who knew a lot about parachuting. We concluded after a few years this was simply false. They said no experienced parachutist would have jumped in the pitch black night in the rain with a little over than 300 kilometers an hour wind in his face, wearing loafers and a trench coat. It was simply impossible. It was concluded by some that the man had died and the authorities had failed to recover his body. Then, in 1980, an 8-year-old boy on holiday made a discovery when he was on the riverbank of Columbia River. The boy pulled over $5,800 from the riverbank, all in $20 Federal Reserve notes. This was part of the ransom. Many theories were put forward as to how the beasts ended up there. Did they float there? Were they buried there? No one knows. With that, let's take a look at the suspects. Some people thought it was Ted Mayfield, a skydiving teacher with a history of criminality, including stealing a plane and armed robbery. Mayfield even called the FBI 4 hours after the heist to give them a list of skydivers who might have done it. But there is no concrete evidence to say Mayfield was D.B. Cooper. But what about Kenneth Christensen? He was a spitting image for the sketch of Cooper. He was a former paratrooper and he'd even spent time working as a flight attendant on Northwest Orient. He was usually broke, but then, in 1972, suddenly had bags of cash and even bought a house. It gets better. On his deathbed in 1994, he told his brother, and I quote, "There is something you should know, but I cannot tell you," end quote. And then he died. The brother then discovered that in his bank he had around $200,000 and left some gold. The brother wrote in 2004, close to death himself, "Before I die, I would like to find out if my brother was D.B. Cooper. From what I know, and I feel that he was, without a doubt." Or could have been Dwayne Weber, who told his wife just before he died, "I am Dan Cooper." He was seen near to where the kid had found the money, and he also looked like Cooper. Again, the DNA wasn't a match, but it was also inconclusive, as it with others. They got the DNA from Cooper's tie, which he kindly left behind before he left. The reason is still unknown. War veteran Walter Arreca also said he was D.B. Cooper. Before he died in 2014, he gave details to his friend about the crime that had not been heard before. Fact examiner and forensic linguist examined the evidence the friend had. It seemed it all pointed to the fact that Rekha could have been D.B. Cooper. Is this most likely the candidate? The Washington Post in 2018 wrote about this, saying while the friend may have had compelling evidence in regard to how the crime took place and the details the friend knew, the FBI would not reopen the case if the money or the parachutes were not given to them. And so, D.B. Cooper could have been one of those few people or someone else. He could have died from the fall, or there could be a totally different story behind what happened after the eventful flight. The case was open for 45 years before the FBI finally closed it in 2016. Though they are willing to hear possible leads, all these years, people are still transfixed on the identity of the cunning crook known as D.B. Cooper. But for now, and perhaps forever, the case of D.B. Cooper will remain a mystery.